24 Days of Wonder. 24 stories from my 19 years with Santaland on 34th Street. Story 22. In the corner by the fireplace stood a cane. In 2003, I was getting into the red suit for a press interview. As I made the final adjustments, Richard Lawlow entered the dressing room. Richard and I had both started in Santaland wearing the red suit back in 1991. Richard was now a straw boss. When he walked into the room, he studied me for a moment, then remarked, "You know, Bob, you've grown into the suit over these years." "You mean I've gotten older and heavier?" I replied. "Yes," he answered, "but I was saying it nicely." I knew when Jack Damlos had hired me, he'd been concerned about the fact I might look too young to play Santa Claus. And the first time I saw myself in the dressing room mirror, fully made up, I knew that Jack had good reason for that concern. The white beard actually hid what little age I had in my face at that time, and it made me look younger, if anything. Therefore, I was quite surprised when, early in my second season, I was told that I would be doing a photo shoot for a new parroting magazine cover that was going to be published the following year. The shoot took place first thing in the morning in House 2, the largest of the houses. Well, I had never done a photo shoot as Santa, but I figured most it could be was a few minutes, take a couple pictures, and we're done. When I got to the house, there were 3 people inside. The beautiful 8-year-old girl who was to be the model, her mother, and the photographer. The girl believed that she was getting her picture taken with the genuine, true, real, honest-to-God Santa Claus. Her mother was a typical stage mother, and I immediately took a dislike to her. She reminded me of many of the stage mothers I had to deal with as an actor and director over the years. Well, she never acknowledged my presence at all. I was as much of a prop to her as the stuffed animals that were part of the decor. She spent most of the shoot offering non-stop suggestions to the photographer. Well, I conducted a typical visit with the model as the photographer snapped away. It took a little longer than the usual visits as we were stopped a few times and asked to change poses. But after about 6 minutes, I had gone through a full visit. Only the photographer wasn't done yet. No, she wasn't even close to being done. Well, I began to panic a little. I had never had to sustain the character of Santa longer than a 7 or 8 minute visit, and I was beginning to run out of things to say. So I asked the girl if there were any other things that she wanted for Christmas. And then I asked her if she knew what her friends wanted for Christmas. And then, did she know what her teachers wanted for Christmas? How about her parents? When I could tell that I was losing her attention, and maybe her belief, I moved on to talking about the reindeer, the elves, the North Pole, and Mrs. Claus. And this seemed to revive her interest a little. And the shoot went on, and on, and on. I asked her what her favorite Christmas carols were, what her favorite Christmas stories were, her favorite Christmas movies and television shows. We were well into the second hour of the shoot when the photographer asked her to whisper in my ear her most secret Christmas wish. The little girl leaned in and, making sure her mother wasn't listening, whispered to me, "I want Mommy and Daddy to stop fighting over me." It was the last thing I was expecting. I looked over to the mother, as she was busily engaged in giving advice to the photographer. So I asked the little girl what she meant. She told me that her mother and father were divorced, had been for a couple of years, but they fought all the time over the girl's modeling and acting career. Her father wanted her to have a normal life growing up. Her mother, who she lived with most of the time, was determined that her daughter was going to be a big star. I asked her what she wanted, and she told me that she just wanted to be a little girl and go to school, have play dates with her friends, play with her toys, but she didn't want to disappoint her mommy. "I don't want to be an actress now," she whispered, "but I do want Mommy and Daddy to stop arguing." I told her to remember that while adults sometimes don't agree on things, that I was sure that both her mommy and her daddy loved her very much, and they both wanted what they thought was best for her. They just didn't see eye to eye on what that was. I realized at that point that the mother had finally stopped talking to the photographer, that she was staring over at us. Well, I was sure she hadn't been able to hear us, but she had a very concerned look on her face. The shoot went on for a while longer, during which time this wonderful little girl and I just talked about whatever came into our heads, and we laughed a lot. When the photographer was finally finished, the girl hugged me, and I whispered that I would pray very hard for her special Christmas wish to come true. She kissed me on the cheek, and the three of them left the house. Then I sat there wondering what to do next, as I had no elf with me. No one from Santaland management had checked in with me for quite a while, and I was surprised when the little girl's mother came back into the house. She asked me what her daughter and I had been whispering about, and I told her that we were talking about her daughter's special Christmas wish. "And what is her special wish?" she asked. And I decided to tell her. She listened as I repeated what her daughter had told me. When I was done, she indignantly snapped at me. "How dare you?" I said I was merely telling her what she had asked me to, that I wasn't judging, I was just relating. "But," I added, "that is your little girl's biggest wish. For you and your ex to stop fighting over her, and for her to have a more normal life. What you decide to do or not do about that is up to you." She was still glaring at me when she left the house. That was 1992. In 1993, I did track down a copy of the magazine the shoot had been done for. They hadn't used the photo. Probably because someone in the art department felt that the Santa Claus in that photo looked too young. Jumping ahead to August of 2005, when I got a manila envelope in my mail addressed to Santaland management. As I was now Director of Event Operations, and as such the person in charge of Santaland for the store, all this kind of mail came to me. Inside the envelope was a photograph and a letter. The letter said, "Dear Sir or Madam, enclosed, please find a photo of Santa Claus with a little girl that was taken for a magazine photo shoot in 1992. That little girl is me when I was 8. I don't know if you have any way of identifying the man in the photo, but if you can, and if you have any way of contacting him, I wanted to thank him. That day he asked me if I had a special Christmas wish, something I hadn't told anyone else. I told him that my parents were divorced and that they fought over me being a model and a child actress. I told Santa that I wanted them to stop fighting over me. I also told him that I didn't want to be a model or an actress. I just wanted to be a normal little girl. After the shoot was over, Santa said something to my mother. When we left the store that day, she was very angry and would barely even speak to me. But that night she called my father, and they talked for a long time. I think it was the first time in a very long time that they had really talked to each other, at least the first time in a very long time that they really listened to each other. They decided to talk the next night over dinner. And the day after that, my mother asked me if I wanted to be a model and an actress. I told her that I didn't, and I never went on another audition or modeling interview again. More importantly, my father and mother somehow found the love that they had for one another all over again. This year, they are celebrating the 12th anniversary of their second wedding to each other. That anniversary is December 24th. They are the most devoted and loving couple one could imagine. Well, yes, they still argue once in a while, but the arguments generally end when one says, "I'm going to talk to Santa about you." We moved to Oregon after they remarried because they wanted to get me and themselves away from the big city and the pressures of city life. I got to grow up in a wonderful home with two loving parents and living the normal life I had always wanted. And I've always tried to remember how lucky I am for all of those things. All because Santa made my special Christmas wish come true. At the age of 21, I still believe that the man I told that wish to is Santa Claus. If there is any way of letting this man know how important he is in my life and in my parents' lives, it would mean the world to us. Thank you. I looked again at the photograph. A little girl on Santa's knee. And maybe, just maybe, the guy in the red suit didn't look too young after all.